You're watching Eye on Africa. I'm Rochelle Harrison-Pless with all the top stories from across the continent coming up. They robbed us like common criminals. Tanzania's president slams the nearly 10,000 civil servants found to have fake education qualifications, sending them packing and ordering officials to name and shame them. I'll have the latest with our correspondent in just a few moments. Parts of East Africa hit by an armyworm invasion, an outbreak threatening to destroy crops with potentially catastrophic consequences in a region already dealing with drought and famine. Plus, we meet South African artist Athi-Patra Ruga, a rising star on the contemporary art scene, with an eye-catching exhibition here in Paris. But first up, Pope Francis is in Egypt in a bid to promote better dialogue between Islam and Christianity. His trip comes just weeks after double suicide bombings at two Coptic Christian churches, attacks which killed 45 people. The Palm Sunday bloodshed came as the country's minority Christian population is increasingly under threat. The pontiff, who said he's travelling as a messenger of peace, met with both Muslim and Christian leaders and the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Well, speaking on Friday, Pope Francis called on leaders of all faiths to unite and renounce extremism in the name of religion. Take a listen.
As religious leaders, therefore, we are called on to call out violence that is masquerading as religion. We must call out violations of human dignity, human rights. We must fight against justification of any violence in the name of religion. And we must show these to be idolatry and false pretenses.
Now, in Tanzania, nearly 10,000 civil servants have been given their marching orders. They've all been fired for holding fake education certificates. A report has revealed officials working in local government, government agencies and public institutions had forged their secondary school qualifications. Well, President John Magufuli has demanded they leave their jobs within the next 2 weeks or face arrest and prosecution. For more on this story, let's bring in Emmanuel Makundi. He's the Dar es Salaam correspondent for our sister station RFI. Emmanuel, now a government report has revealed thousands of civil servants with fraudulent qualifications. Tell us more.
Well, this process kicked off March last year after the president ordered all public servants to be evaluated in that, so to see if most of them qualified for the position they are holding. Therefore, they were to submit their original secondary certificates, which must have been verified by the National Examination Council of Tanzania. And remember, before that, just after President Magufuli came into power, he also ordered the verification of all employees. And it was discovered that more than 20,000 people were ghost workers. So that is when he issued an order to check the qualification of all public servants. So today he received a report on the verification exercise, and where it unveiled that more than 9,000 employees are holding fake certificates. But this exercise took us by surprise that they didn't include the presidential appointees and politicians. But again, he took instant action, as you said earlier on your introduction, that he fired all of them, and also he directed proper authorities to arrest them and to explain where they got the certificate. And if not, they will be in prison for 7 years. Of course, forgery in Tanzania is a criminal offense.
OK, Emmanuel, thank you very much for that. Emmanuel Makundi, the Dar es Salaam correspondent for our sister station RFI, reporting there. Next, at least 5 soldiers have been killed and 40 others injured after a suicide car bomb attack in northeast Nigeria. A militant from the Islamist extremist group Boko Haram rammed a truck packed with explosives into their military convoy. According to army officials, the troops were conducting clearance operations between Yobe and Borno states. Well, the Nigerian military has been targeted in a wave of deadly attacks in recent months as it battles to stamp out Boko Haram. Now, a man suspected of allegedly plotting to assassinate South African cabinet ministers and possibly President Jacob Zuma has been hauled into the dock in Johannesburg. Elvis Ramusabudi was formally charged with conspiring to murder in a case that has gripped the country. The South African elite crime-fighting unit claims he was intercepted trying to raise money for the plan, but the prosecution is questioning the 32-year-old's state of mind. They gobble almost anything in their path and can have a devastating impact on crops. Parts of Uganda, Kenya and Rwanda have been hit by a plague of armyworm caterpillars that are munching their way through fields of maize. The outbreak could spark a catastrophic food crisis when much of the Greater Horn of Africa is already grappling with extreme drought or even famine. Our correspondents Thais Brook and Duncan Woodside inspect the damage in southern Rwanda.
Claudine and her family are desperate. For just over a month now, this usually fertile region has been blighted by armyworm caterpillars.
If you look at a corn stalk, there is at least one caterpillar. All the maize has been ravaged. It is everywhere, even in the sorghum plantations.
But Claudine isn't giving up. She eradicates the pest, inch by inch. It's a question of survival.
Normally, we sell most of our crops at the market and keep the rest to eat ourselves. We wonder how we will survive the next few months.
Farmers often apply insecticide by hand here.
It's affected me a lot. When I touch pesticides, it makes my eyes water, it stings my face, and it gives me a headache.
Rwanda's government has reacted quickly and distributed 10,000 litres of insecticide and spraying equipment. It's confident it can avoid a wider food crisis.
So when you look at all of these efforts and when you look at the acreage that is covered by maize crop, I mean, I don't see that we are in any danger.
According to the government, less than a quarter of maize plantations are affected, and the crop accounts for only 5% of cereals at this time of year. The priority now, to stop the caterpillars in their tracks before next season.
And finally, South Africa has long been at the forefront of the contemporary art scene. Athi-Patra Ruga is a rising star making waves at home and abroad thanks to his colourful tapestries and thought-provoking performance art. Well, France 24 reporters followed the up-and-coming South African talent from his workshop in Cape Town to his show at the Art Africa, the new workshop exhibition currently on display here in Paris at the Louis Vuitton Foundation for Contemporary Art.
All of them are self-portraits, except for the versatile Queen Ivy having another moment whereby she's crossing the waters. People are always having epiphanies.
She sounds like a character from ancient mythology, but the versatile Queen Ivy is the relatively recent creation of Athi-Patra Ruga. The South African artist has conjured a glittering diva who features in his tapestries and performances.
I'm no weekend special. I'm no weekend special.
She's one of a handful of avatars collected in Athi-Patra's pantheon of alternative identities.
Like when I use the word pantheon, I'm totally reflecting on the idea that I'm creating myths. I'm creating a house full of gods or a house full of avatars, to be closer, because an avatar is there to actually teach.
Born in 1984 in Mthatha, today the artist lives and works between Johannesburg and Cape Town. Adept at various techniques and producing across different media, in Athi-Patra's studio, attention to detail is paramount. Design blends with photography, knitting with haute couture, and fashion with art.
For me, my love for craft comes from basically knowing that there is a tradition of craft. I think that there has been some kind of ancestral investment in expression. That's how I somehow like to see what I do.
A rising star on the South African contemporary art scene, Athi-Patra's work has been displayed in major international shows, pieces that draw their inspiration from the socio-political context in his country of birth and the reality of life almost 25 years after the election of Nelson Mandela, marking the end of apartheid.
Between 1994 and probably like now, there's been a euphoria in South Africa that came with the elections. And I think that there's something blinding with euphoria. But there is a generation that wakes up with a certain distance and is not touched by the euphoria. And I'm pleased to come from that because we can keep things moving.
These are the faces of that generation, woven into the work on the walls of the Louis Vuitton Foundation.
Literally sitting and doing a tapestry, sitting and weaving a fate. You cut a thread, you work with the thread as if it is a storyline or even someone's lifeline.
That report from Olivia Salazar-Winspear and Caroline Dumais. Well, I'll be back in around 45 minutes with more African news. Stay with us. Live from Paris continues after a short break. Don't go away.
We have a new initiative at The Observers. The Observers Take Action. Ordinary people around the world who have concrete ideas and projects to make their part of the world a better place. It could be for the environment. It could be for education. Or to improve the society they live in. If you know of someone in your community who's working to make a difference, let us know.
Tech24, presented by Julia Seeger and Dhananjay Kadilkar.
New technology, the latest innovation and its impact on a digital society.
Tech24 on France 24 and France24.com.